Hey, what's going on, guys? Last night I released a crash course on the Materialize CSS framework, and I got a lot of good feedback. You guys really liked it, and I did mention that I might do a part 2 and go over the JavaScript widgets because I didn't have time to cram that into the first video. So that's what I'm going to do now. We're going to go through, we're going to look at things like carousels, sliders, modals, all the different JavaScript widgets that you can use in Materialize. All right, now this is what we've already done. Okay, so basically looked at all the CSS elements, kind of a cheat sheet or a sandbox, whatever you want to call it. Now I'm not going to add on to this. I want to leave this file as is. What I am going to do is just create another file in the Materialize sandbox, and I'm just going to call it index2.html, and you can call it whatever you'd like. And then what we'll do is go back to the documentation and go to get started and just grab this right here, the HTML setup. So let's copy that and let's go and paste that in. And we're going to use the CDN. We don't actually have a local version of the CSS. So let's go ahead and grab this link right here, the CDN link. That's for the CSS. So we'll paste that in here. And of course we're going to need the JavaScript. So let's grab that as well, this CDN. And we're going to put that right here. Okay, so now we should be all set to start using the widgets. So I'm going to create a container because I want everything to be kind of pushed into the middle. So let's go right here and we'll say div container. And by the way, I'm using Emmet, so that's why you see those shortcuts that I'm using. So in the container, first thing I want to look at is the carousel, which is kind of like a slider. It has the image, and then you can kind of just push it to the side and load the next one, and so on. So let's go ahead and add the markup for that. I'm going to put a comment in here, and also an H1. And then how this works is we have a div with the class of carousel. And inside the div we're going to have some A tags which are going to have the class of carousel item. So carousel-item. Okay, and then as far as the href here, what I'm going to do is put in a number sign and then 1, like that. 1 with an exclamation mark. And then in here will be an image. So let's put an image tag, and as far as the images, I'm just going to paste this in. We're going to use Lorem Pixel, which is a helpful site that generates images for you for sample images for projects like this. So basically, what this is going to do is it's going to give us an image that's 250 by 250, and it's going to be in the nature category. All right, so let's go ahead and just copy this whole thing here. And then we're going to paste this in 2, 3, 4, 5 times. And we're just going to change the IDs here, or the href. So this will be for 2. This will be 3, 4, and 5. Okay, so if we go ahead and save this and then we go to, let's see, we're going to go to the server that's running, and then I'm going to go to index2.html, and we don't see anything here because we have to actually initialize it in the JavaScript. Okay, so let's go back to Atom, and then we're going to go down here and we're going to put in some script tags, and we're using jQuery, so we're going to put in our money sign, and we're going to do document.ready. And in here we'll put a function. Okay, so as soon as the document's ready, we want to just initialize the carousel. So we can do that by using jQuery to grab the class of carousel and then just call .carousel. Okay, it's a jQuery plugin. And then it should work. So let's save, let's go back, and there we go. And if I click on the next image, it'll go over. If I click on back, now they're all the same image because we're using that Lorem Pixel. If we want to change that, we can just kind of we can change the category. So if we go back, I'm not exactly sure what other categories they have. Let's check it out. If you've never used Lorem Pixel, it's very helpful when you're, in development and you just need quick images. So you can see there's like sports, animals, food, business. So let's just change some of these up. So we'll say sports, food, animals, and fitness. Okay, we go back, and now we have different images. Oh, it looks like one of these, what is that, fitness? That's not an actual category. Why did I even put fitness? Let's do, I don't know, cats. Even though I freaking hate cats. Oh. Alright, so there we go. Very easy to implement. Now, we can also take the carousel and make it into a full width slider. So let me show you what I mean. I'm going to copy, let's see, I'm going to copy all of this actually. Except for the container. Let me put a comment here just so I know that this is where the container ends. Alright, so we'll go ahead and paste this in. And let's change this up. This is, we'll say carousel full slider. And then we just want to add to this class here, in addition to carousel, we want carousel dash slider. And then these, we can just keep this all the same. I'm just going to change the size of the images here. Let's change it to 800 wide and 400 high. Alright, we'll just change the rest of these. Alright, let's take a look. And it's not showing up because we actually need to add a line of JavaScript for that as well. So down at the bottom here, just like we did with the regular carousel, I'm just going to copy that. We'll say init carousel slider. And in here we just want to do dot carousel dash slider, and it's going to be dot carousel, and then we can add some options here. I'm going to add an option of full width, and we'll set that to true. Okay, let's see what that gives us. And there we go. And if I click and hold and drag, or just click, yeah, I guess you do have to drag it, but you can push it forwards or backwards, okay, which is really nice. So that's the carousel. Let's move on. Let's see what we're doing next here. Let's move on to, and there is another slider that I'll get to in a little bit, but let's move on to collapsible, which is kind of like an accordion. I think that's what it's called in Bootstrap. So let's go ahead and put a comment in here, and we'll say collapsible. I think that's how you spell it. I'm a horrible speller. So collapsible, and we're going to put a UL in here, and we're going to give it a class of collapsible, and we're also going to give it a special attribute called data collapsible. Okay, just like that, and we're going to set that to accordion. And then inside here we obviously need our LIs, and then inside the LI, let's do a div with the class of collapsible header. Collapsible dash header. Alright, and then in here I'm going to put an icon. So let's do I with the class of material dash icons. And this icon is going to be filter underscore drama. And let's see, we're going to go outside of, actually we're going to put some text next to the icon. So let's say first. And then under the header we're going to have another div, and this one is going to have the class of collapsible body. Okay, and then in the body what we'll do is let's put a span, and then we'll just put some dummy text. I'm going to say lorem 10. So that gives us 10 dummy text words here. And then that should be it for the first one. So let's copy the li, and we'll put 2 more in. I'll just change this one to second, and let's change this one to third. Alright, I think that should be good. So let's save that and see what it gives us. And there we go. We have first, second, third. Click on first. You'll see it opens. Awesome. So if I click on one, it's going to close the previous one. Now, you may want to have one of these open by default when the user comes to your page. So what we can do is we can add an active class. Let's say we want the second one open. So right here, we'll just add in the class of active. And now you can see it's open. You know what I'm going to do is add in a div with a height, so you guys aren't looking at the very bottom of the screen. So I'm just going to go under the container here and just say div, and let's give it a style of height 500 pixels. Alright, that way you guys don't have to look at the very bottom of the screen. So the next thing we're going to look at are toasts, which are really nice, I guess, pop-ups, you could call them. So let's go back and let's go under the collapsible, under the accordion. I'm going to put a comment here, toasts, and let's put an H1, we'll say toasts, and then I'm going to put an A tag in here with the class of btn. Okay, this is going to be a button, and as far as the text in the button, let's just say toast, and then we're going to add an on click here. Okay, so right here let's do, actually let's get rid of the href. And then we'll say on click, and we're going to set this to materialize dot toast, and then we can pass in a message. For instance, let's say post saved. Let's say after you submit a post to your database, you want this to show up, and then we can do the time that we want it to show up. So I'm going to do 4,000, meaning 4,000 milliseconds. Okay, so it's 4 seconds, and then actually, let's just do that. And I'm not sure if I have to initialize this. Let me just check real quick. No, we shouldn't have to initialize it, I don't think. So let's go back over here and let's go ahead and click the toast button, and you'll see we get this post saved. Okay, and we can keep clicking it, and they're only going to last for 4 seconds. Okay, or whatever you specify. So I think that's really cool. It's really easy to implement, just a simple on click. Now you can also initialize, or not initialize, but you can execute these toasts from JavaScript as well. Okay, it doesn't have to be from a button click. So to do that, let's go down to our script here, and let's say fire, we'll say fire off toast, and all we have to do is say materialize dot toast, and it's set up just like the on click. So we could do, let's just say hello world, and we'll say we want it for 3 seconds. And now if we go, and you'll see that it fires off right away. If I reload the page, it's going to show again. Okay, and it's going to last for 3 seconds. You can also style them. So if we wanted, for instance, round corners, let's go up here. I'm going to comment that out because I don't want that firing off every time. But let's go to where we have the button, and we can add in a third parameter and say rounded. Alright, and now you'll see that it has rounded corners. Okay, so that's the toast. Now let's take a look at tooltips, which are pretty easy to implement. So we're going to go under where we had the toast, and let's say tooltips. Okay, so for this, what I'm going to do is create an A tag, and I'm going to give it a class of btn, and also a class of tooltipped. Okay, tooltipped. And then we're going to give it a special attribute called data position. So data position. And you can specify where you want the tooltip to pop up. So let's say top, and let's just go, we'll say hover me. And then we also need a special attribute called data tooltip, which is going to be the content of that tooltip. So we'll just say I am tooltip. Let's take a look at that. So hover me, there it is. I am tooltip. And as you probably guessed, we can change the positioning. So let's go ahead and just copy this. We'll paste in 3 more, and then I'm going to change this one to bottom. I'm going to change this one to left, and I'm going to change this one to right. Not only that, but we can also add a delay. Whoops, that needs a quote. We can also add how long we want the delay. So for this second one here, let's say data dash delay, and we're going to set that to 50. So let's go ahead and take a look. And now that's the top, that's the bottom, that's the left, that's the right. Let's make the delay longer. I don't know why I put 50. I believe it's milliseconds, so let's do 5,000. Okay, so now we can see I'm hovering over it. 5 seconds goes by, and there it is. Okay, so you can delay them. Really simple. Next thing we're going to look at is a drop down. So let's go ahead and put in a comment here. Oops. Drop downs. So what we're going to do is put in an A tag here, and this is going to have a class of dropdown dash button, and we're also going to want the btn class because it is a button. And then let's see, we're going to have a special attribute called data activates. So data dash activates, and we'll set that to, let's say, dropdown 1. And we'll say drop down. So what it's going to do is it's going to look for an element with the ID of drop down 1. So I'm actually going to just paste this in because I don't want to type it out. But you'll see that it's a UL with the ID of drop down 1. We actually did this in the navigation part of the last video. Okay, class of drop down content, which will initially hide this. All right, and then we'll save it and run it. And now if I go and I click here, you'll see we get our drop down. We have a divider. We can put icons. So it looks really nice. So the next thing we're going to look at is something called MaterialBox. And this is basically like an image modal. Or what's that called? Just, you know, when you click on an image and it just makes it bigger. A lightbox. That's what it is, a lightbox. So let's say materialized or material boxed. Alright, so what we'll do is put in an image here, and let's give it a class of material boxed. Okay, now for the source, I'm just going to grab a link here. This is actually from the Materialize CSS site. And we're going to put in a, actually let's just do that first. Okay, so there it is, and if we hover over it, first of all, it gets lighter, and then if we click it, it goes into a light box, it gets bigger. Okay, we can also add a caption. If we go over here and we add data, let's see, what is it, data caption, and we'll just say here is an image caption. And now if we click on that, you'll see down here we have our caption. So very, very easy to implement this stuff. And if you weren't using a framework and you were using just straight JavaScript or jQuery, it would be a lot more difficult to do something like that. So the next thing we're going to look at is the slider, not the carousel slider, but there's actually a separate slider that we can use. So for this, we're going to have a div with the class of slider, and inside here we're going to have a UL, and we're going to give that a class of slides, and then we'll have our li tags and an image. So let's say image, and then for the source we're going to use a lorem pixel image. It's going to be 580 width, 250 height. And then we can also put captions. So if we go under the image here, and let's do div, and let's give this a class of caption, and I also want to give it a class of center align. Okay, and then in this div let's put an h3, and we'll just say this is our tagline. And then under that I'm going to put an h5, and I'm going to give that a class of light, and let's say gray text. Actually, it should be a dot right there. I'm using Emmet. Okay, and if you don't know what this stuff is, light, gray text, go back and watch the first video, because I go over all the colors and stuff like that. And we can do text lighten 3. Okay, so we have this h5, and then we'll say here is our slogan. So then what I'll do is copy that li. Let's do 3 of them. And let's see, let's change this to 2, 3, just so we have different images. And let's see, this is our tagline. You know what, let's do left align for this one. And then for this one here, we'll do right align. Alright, now I think we have to initialize this. Let me check real quick. Yeah, we do. So let's save, and well, not save. Let's go down here and go into our script, and we just want to grab the slider class, and we just want to call dot slider. Okay. Save that. There we go. Our tagline. Here's our slogan, and you can see that we can click on these here. Brings in our tagline. This is a left align. Then we have our right align. So nice and clean. So the next thing we're going to look at are modals. Okay, so modals those are also in Bootstrap. Basically, you know, you click and then you have this piece of content that opens up, kind of like a Lightbox, but for content. So let's say modal. Okay, and first we need some kind of trigger. So let's say modal triggers, and we're just going to have some buttons. So let's do an A, and we'll give it a class of, oops, why'd I do that? We'll give it a class of button. Let's also give it a class of waves effect. And then this is going to actually go to an ID of whatever we want. Let's call it modal 1. Alright, and then for the text we'll also say modal 1. And then I'm going to put another button that's going to go to modal 2. Okay, we'll make this button red. So we're going to need the structure for modal 1. Oh, I forgot to see there. So let's do a div, and this is actually going to have an ID of modal 1. Okay, and then we're going to give it a class of just modal. And then inside here we're going to have a div with the class of modal content. And for the content, let's put an H4, and we'll say modal header. Alright, and then under the H4 we'll just put a paragraph, and we'll say a bunch of text. And then it can also have a footer, so if we go under the content here and put a div, and we'll give that a class of modal-footer. Alright, and then inside the footer let's put an A tag, and I'm going to give it a class of modal action. Also modal-close. Let's also do waves effect, and let's do, I cannot type and talk, waves green. Alright, and then let's see, we'll just say, I don't know, button. So let's save that. Whoops. What did I do? Alright, let's save that. Take a look. So there we go, modal 1. Now nothing's happening when I click it. That's because we need to initialize this as well. So let's go back to the script tags down here. Let me just put a comment here. Say init. Init slider. And then let's do init modal. Sorry for that yelling upstairs. And this is going to be .modal. Remember, all of them have a class of modal, and then we're going to call the modal plugin. So let's try that out. Okay, we'll click that. There we go. Modal header, bunch of text. We have our button. And then if we wanted to have another modal, okay, we have this one that's going to go to modal 2, so we could just create another one of these. So just change that to 2, and we'll say modal 2 header. And now we can have separate modals, okay? So the next thing I want to look at is Sidenav. Now, you saw a little bit of this when we did the navigation bars in the last video. If we, made it to a smaller size, if we made the screen smaller, we'd have this collapse button that we could click and open a Sidenav. Well, you don't have to just use that in your navigation. You can do that anywhere. So let's go ahead and do that. So let's say Sidenav. Okay, so we're going to have a UL with an ID of slide-out, and we're going to give it a class of Sidenav. Alright, and then in here, let's put an LI, and then we'll put an A tag, and then inside here, let's put an icon. So material icons, and let's do a cloud icon, and then we'll just put in here, we'll say link 1. Alright, so that's our first link, and then I'm just going to copy the LI. Alright, and then for this one we'll say link 2, and we'll leave out the icon, just giving you some different options. Then we could have a divider. So if we wanted to do right here, we could say we could do div. We could do a div with the class of divider. And let's see, for this one here, let's do this A tag will give a class of subheader. Okay, and then we'll just say subheader. And then for this last one here, let's give this A tag, let's give it a class of waves effect, and we'll get rid of the icon, and we'll say link 3. Now we need an activator or a trigger, whatever you want to call it. So let's put in an A tag here, and let's give this a special attribute of data-activates. And we're going to set that to slide-out. And let's also give it a class. We're going to give it a class of button collapse. Okay, and then we'll put an I tag in here with a class of material-icons. And let's make this a menu icon. Alright, so we have our little menu icon. Now it's not working because we actually have to initialize this as well. So let's go to our script tags, and let's say init Sidenav. So we're going to take that button collapse class, and then we're just going to call Sidenav, and we did this in the last video as well. So now, if I click this, you'll see we get this sidebar. You see we have a link with an icon, without an icon, a divider. We can also have subheaders if you want to break your links up into separate groups. So pretty handy. So the next thing we're going to look at are tabs. Okay, so let's go back and let's see, we're going to go up here. And let's say tabs. So for the tabs, I'm going to put, let's do a div and let's give it a class of row. And then we're going to do a div with the class of call and the class of S12, which will make it a 12 column div. Okay, and again, if you haven't watched the last video, go ahead and watch that and I'll show you about the grid system. So let's put a UL here with the class of tabs. And then we'll have our LIs that are also going to have a class of tab, and then I'm also going to give it a class of call, and then also S3. Okay, so these will be 3 column divs, and then we'll put an A tag, and in here we'll say test1. All right, and then the href here is actually going to go to a specific ID, which I'm going to call test1. And then what we can do is go under. See, we're going to go under this div here, and let's put a div with the ID of test1. Okay, and I'm also going to just give it a class. Let's give it a class of call and then S12. And then in here for text, we'll just say test1. And then what we'll do is create another LI up here. Let's create a couple more. So this is test 1, we'll do test 2, 3, 4. This will go to 2, 3, and 4, and then we'll just copy this. Okay, so this will be 2, 3, 4. Alright, so let's go ahead and try that. So that's what it looks like, and you see I go to test 2, this content changes, test 3, test 4, very easy to do. Now we can also make one of these active if we want when we come to the page. Let's say we want test 2 to be active, we can just add class active. We can also disable one if we wanted to. Let's say for this list item here, the third one, we want to disable. We can just give it a class, or not a class of disabled. So let's look at that, and you'll see that when we enter the page, it starts on test 2, and we can't go to test 3 because it's disabled. Alright guys, so you can see there's a lot of cool stuff with the JavaScript widgets. Now the last thing I'm going to show you is something that I think is really cool and really unique, and that's Tap Target, which is part of the feature discovery widget. So let's go under the tabs, and let's say Tap Target, and what we're going to do here is put in a div, and we're going to give this is going to be a fixed action button. Okay, and we went over that in the last video. So it needs a class of fixed action dash button, or BTN, I'm sorry. Okay, and then we're going to float this into the corner of the page, okay, the lower right hand corner. So I'm just going to put a style tag in here, and let's say we want it bottom, we'll say 45 pixels, and let's say from the right we'll do 24 pixels. Oh. Alright, and then inside this div we're going to put an A tag with an ID of menu. Alright, and then we're also going to give it, let's give it a class as well. Alright, couple classes. So a class will have waves effect, we'll do waves light. It is hard to type today. So that should be waves light. And let's also do BTN. This is going to be a floating button, so we want to do BTN dash floating. I also want it to be large, so btn-large, and I'm going to make it the color cyan. Alright, so that's going to be our floating button, and inside here is going to be an icon. So let's say I class material icons, and the icon I want is the menu icon. Alright, now let's just look at this. So you can see it gave us this little icon over here. If I click it, it doesn't do anything. It just goes up to the top of the screen. So what we're going to do is add an event to it. So let's go back and let's add an on click. So I'll go right here and say on click. And then what this is going to do is we're going to throw some jQuery in here, and we're going to say for the class of tap target. So tap target. And then we're going to call the tap target plugin, so dot tap target, and we want to pass in here open, okay, because we want it to open. Now it's going to look for something with the class of tap target, so we're going to go underneath this div here, and let's say tap target content. Okay, so we're going to have a div, and we're going to give it a class of tap target. Let's also give it a class of cyan because I want it to match the color of the button. And then we also want this to have a special attribute of data activates. Alright, and that's going to activate menu. Alright, and then in here, let's create another div, and let's give this a class of tap target content. Okay, I'm also going to give it a class of white text. And let's put in H5, and for the title we'll just say tap target content, and then under the H5 we'll put a paragraph. I'll say lorem, I don't know, 30, just give us some sample text to work with. Let's give this paragraph a class of white text as well. And that's it. So let's go ahead and save this, and we're going to go back. And if I click this, nothing happens. Let's see, why is that not working? Oh, you know what it is? We need to get rid of the href. Alright, let's try that. So now if I click this, look at that. I think that is really cool looking. And you can see, you can obviously make it different colors just by changing cyan to a different color. Now we don't need to just use this to activate it. We could create another button. So for instance, if I wanted to go, let's see, we'll go right under this, and let's just create a regular button. So we'll give it an A tag with the class of waves effect, waves light, BTN, and cyan. Okay, and we'll just get rid of the href here because that screws things up. And then we can just grab that on click, this right here, and we'll just paste that right in here. Okay, and then for the text we'll just say open tap target, and then we can also create a separate button to close it if we want. So if I were to copy this, oh, you know what? I don't have soft wrap on. Sorry about that, guys. You can see how stuff goes outside of the screen here. I don't like that. There we go. Alright, so for this one, all we need to do is instead of saying open, we'll say close. And let's just close. Let's just change this to close. And now we have our two buttons. We can open it. This will also close it. It'll kind of just toggle it, I guess. But you can also go over here and close it. This one will not open it. It'll just close it. Alright, and I just think that's really cool. It's something unique that you don't really see in other frameworks. Alright guys, so I'm going to go ahead and stop the video here. So between this file and the other one we created in the last video, you have quite a few really cool elements and really cool functionality to work with on the front end. I will be making a video creating either a website or a UI. I'm not exactly sure when that's going to be though. It's not going to be my next video, pretty sure. So thanks for watching, guys. Please subscribe. Please follow me on social media. Share the videos. Whatever you can do is absolutely awesome. So thanks for watching, and I will